Ji-Woo stepped off the transport ship and felt the heat immediately. The air on planet Vermath was thick and hot, like standing too close to an oven. She pulled at the collar of her uniform and looked around. Everything here was massive. The buildings were tall black towers that reached up into the red sky. Mountains surrounded the military base, and she could see smoke rising from some of them. Active volcanoes. The briefing had mentioned that, but seeing them in person was different. She was the first human to ever visit this place. The Draconian Military Academy trained the best dragon warriors in the galaxy. For thousands of years, only dragons had walked these grounds, but the peace treaty between Earth and the Dragon Empire had opened new doors. Cultural exchange, they called it. Ji-Woo was supposed to observe their training methods and report back to Earth Command. A tall dragon officer waited near the landing pad. His scales were deep blue, almost black, and his eyes were golden. He looked at Ji-Woo with an expression she could not read. Dragons were hard to understand. Their faces did not move like human faces. "Lieutenant Ji-Woo," the dragon said. His voice was deep and rumbling. "I am Commander Thalrix. Welcome to the Academy," Ji-Woo saluted. "Thank you, Commander. I am honored to be here." Thalrix turned and started walking. Ji-Woo had to jog a little to keep up with his long strides. He led her through the base. Dragons walked past them, some in uniform, others in casual clothing. All of them stared at her. She was used to it by now. Everywhere she went in dragon territory, people stared. Humans were still a novelty to them. "You will observe flight combat training today," Thalrix said. "Our young warriors practice aerial formations. They must learn perfect discipline. Dragonflight combat requires complete coordination." "How young are these warriors?" Ji-Woo asked. "Between 20 and 30 cycles old," Thalrix replied. "In your terms, that would be like teenagers. They are cubs, but old enough to begin serious training." They reached a large open field. It was surrounded by high walls made of black stone. In the center of the field was a raised platform where instructors could stand and watch. Thalrix gestured for Ji-Woo to climb the stairs to the platform. From up here, she had a perfect view of the training ground. The sky above was clear except for a few clouds. Ji-Woo pulled out her datapad and prepared to take notes. This was what she came here to do. Observe, learn, and report back. A horn sounded in the distance. Suddenly, dragons appeared in the sky. They came from different directions, flying fast. Ji-Woo counted 30 of them. They were smaller than adult dragons, but still huge. The smallest one was probably 20 feet long from nose to tail. The largest was maybe 50 feet. Their scales were different colors: red, green, blue, silver, gold. They gleamed in the sunlight. The cubs formed into lines in the air. They flew in perfect formation, wingtip to wingtip. It was beautiful to watch. They moved as one unit, like a flock of birds, but much more precise. An instructor on the ground shouted commands. The cubs responded immediately, changing formation, diving, climbing, spinning in coordinated patterns. Ji-Woo was impressed. The discipline was incredible. These were young dragons, but they flew like experienced warriors. She made notes on her datapad, trying to capture every detail. The wind shifted. It was just a small change, but it blew from the platform toward the training ground. Ji-Woo did not think anything of it. She was too focused on watching the dragons. One of the cubs faltered. His wings stuttered for a moment. His head turned sharply toward the observation platform. Toward Ji-Woo. She saw his nostrils flare. He was smelling the air. Then everything went wrong. The cub broke formation. He stopped following commands and dove toward the platform. Another cub followed him. Then another. Within seconds, all 30 cubs had abandoned their training exercise. They all turned and flew straight at Ji-Woo. Commander Thalrix roared. His voice was so loud that Ji-Woo felt it in her chest. He was shouting commands in the dragon language. The other instructors joined him, all yelling at the cubs to stop, to return to formation. The cubs did not listen. They did not even seem to hear. They were completely focused on reaching the platform. Ji-Woo froze. 30 dragons, each one weighing several tons, were flying directly at her at high speed. Her training kicked in and she looked for an escape route, but there was nowhere to go. The platform was surrounded by open air on all sides. The cubs landed on and around the platform. The structure shook under their weight. One cub landed so hard that part of the railing broke. They crowded around Ji-Woo, pushing and shoving each other to get closer to her. They were making sounds, not roars or growls, but soft chirping noises. It reminded Ji-Woo of birds, or puppies. The cubs nudged her with their massive heads. Their scales were warm and surprisingly smooth. One cub, a silver one, pushed his snout right into her chest. Another one, smaller with green scales, tried to squeeze between two larger cubs to reach her. Jiwoo stumbled backward and nearly fell. A large red cub caught her with his wing, steadying her. The cubs pressed closer, all of them trying to touch her at once. Their chirping got louder. They were excited, happy. She could feel their warm breath on her skin. Commander Thalrix flew up to the platform. Other instructors followed. They landed and tried to pull the cubs away from Jiwoo. The cubs resisted. Some of them growled at their own instructors. One cub wrapped his tail around Jiwoo protectively. "What is happening?" Jiwoo managed to ask. Her voice shook a little. "I do not know," Thalrix said. He sounded shocked. "This has never happened before, never." More instructors arrived. It took all of them working together to separate the cubs from Jiwoo. The cubs cried out. They reached toward her with their claws, their wings, their tails. They did not want to leave her. Some of them fought their instructors. These were trained warriors being taught discipline since they were hatchlings. But right now they acted like younglings who had never learned control. Finally, the instructors managed to move all the cubs away from the platform. But the cubs did not go far. They sat on the ground below, looking up at Jiwoo. All 30 of them. Their eyes were locked on her. They were still making those soft chirping sounds. Jiwoo looked at Commander Thalrix. He looked at her. Neither of them knew what to say. "I think," Jiwoo said slowly, "that your training exercise is over for today." Thalrix stared at the cubs below. They were supposed to be the Academy's finest students, future commanders and warriors. Right now they looked like lovesick puppies. "Yes," he said quietly. "I believe you are correct." Something had just happened. Something that no one expected and no one could explain. But Jiwoo could feel it in the air, in the way the cubs looked at her, in the strange warmth she felt in her chest. Everything was about to change. The Academy erupted into chaos within an hour. Jiwoo sat in a small conference room while dragons argued outside. She could hear their raised voices through the walls. Some were angry, some were confused. All of them were concerned. 2 guards stood by her door. They were there to protect her, Commander Thalrix had said. But Jiwoo noticed they also made sure she did not leave. She was not exactly a prisoner, but she was not free to go either. Dr. Hyunwoo arrived 2 hours later. He was a xenobiologist from Earth, part of the small human delegation that had come to Dragon Space. He rushed into the room carrying several cases of medical equipment. "Jiwoo, are you hurt? Did they harm you?" Hyunwoo asked, looking her over with concern. "I am fine," Jiwoo said. "The cubs did not hurt me. They just wanted to be near me." "The reports I received sound insane," Hyunwoo said, setting up his equipment. "They said all the cubs abandoned training and mobbed you?" "That is exactly what happened," Hyunwoo shook his head. "That should not be possible. Dragons pride themselves on discipline, military cubs especially. They train them from the moment they hatch." He ran scanners over Jiwoo's body. He took blood samples. He checked her brain waves, her hormone levels, everything he could think of. The tests took more than an hour. Jiwoo sat patiently while he worked. Finally, Hyunwoo sat back and looked at his results. He frowned. "Nothing," he said. "You are completely normal. No unusual pheromones, no psychic emissions, no hormonal changes. Nothing that should affect dragons at all." "Then why did they react that way?" Jiwoo asked. "I have no idea." A knock came at the door. One of the guards opened it. Commander Thalrix entered, followed by an older dragon with pale gray scales. The older dragon's eyes were sharp and intelligent. "This is Elder Physician Karath," Thalrix said. "He is our finest medical expert." Karath looked at Jiwoo with curiosity. "The human who broke our training," he said. There was no anger in his voice, only interest. "May I examine you?" "Dr. Hyunwoo just finished examining me," Jiwoo said. He found nothing unusual. "I would like to try nonetheless," Karath said. "With your permission," Jiwoo nodded. She was getting tired of being examined, but she understood. Everyone wanted answers. Karath used different instruments than Hyunwoo had used. Dragon medical technology looked different from human technology, but it worked on similar principles. He scanned her carefully, taking his time. "Fascinating," Karath murmured. "Completely unremarkable. A normal human female in good health." "That is what I found," Hyunwoo agreed. And yet the cubs responded to her like... Kareth trailed off. He seemed uncomfortable finishing his sentence. Like what? Jiwoo asked. Kareth exchanged a glance with Commander Thalrix. Perhaps we should discuss the cubs, Kareth said, changing the subject. Their behavior is also concerning. What do you mean? Jiwoo asked. They refuse to train, Thalrix said. His voice was heavy. They will not eat. They will not sleep. All they do is gather outside this building and call for you. Jiwoo stood up and walked to the window. She looked out and gasped. Below in the courtyard, all 30 cubs sat in a group. They were looking up at the building. When they saw her at the window, they began chirping and calling. The sound was heartbreaking. They sounded sad, lost. They have been there since we separated them from you, Thalrix said. We tried to move them. They will not go. What about their parents? Hyunwoo asked. Surely their families can help. We contacted the families, Kareth said. That created more problems. As if summoned by his words, there was a commotion outside. Jiwoo heard angry roaring. Heavy footsteps shook the building. Someone was coming and they were not happy. The door burst open. A massive dragon pushed past the guards. He was easily twice the size of Commander Thalrix. His scales were dark red, marked with old scars. His eyes blazed with fury. Where is my daughter? The dragon roared. What have you done to Minna? Captain Rintok, Thalrix said, stepping forward. Please calm yourself. Calm? My daughter will not eat. She cries day and night for some human she barely met. And you tell me to calm myself? Rintok's eyes found Jiwoo. He moved toward her. The guards tried to stop him, but he pushed them aside like toys. He stopped right in front of Jiwoo and glared down at her. She had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. He was terrifying up close. What did you do to her? Rintok demanded. I did nothing, Jiwoo said quietly. I do not know why this happened. Lies. You must have done something. Used some chemical, some technology, some human trick. Captain, Kareth said firmly. We have examined the human thoroughly. She has done nothing. This is as much a mystery to her as it is to us. Rintok's anger seemed to deflate. He looked tired suddenly, worried. Then what is wrong with my daughter? Why does she act this way? That is what we are trying to understand, Thalrix said. More dragons arrived throughout the day. All of them were parents of the cubs outside. They were angry, confused, and frightened. Their children were acting strange, and no one could explain why. Dr. Hyunwoo had an idea. What if we try a controlled experiment? He suggested. Put Jiwoo in a room with a few of the cubs. We can observe what happens in a safe environment. The dragon leaders discussed this idea. They argued for a long time. Some thought it was too dangerous. Others said they needed answers. Finally, they agreed. They chose 3 cubs for the test. A small green one named Sojin, a silver one called Velis, and Minna, Captain Rintok's daughter. They moved the 3 cubs into a large sealed chamber that was normally used for combat training. Cameras recorded everything. Doctors and scientists from both species watched through monitors. Jiwoo stood in an entrance corridor. Through a door, she could see the 3 cubs waiting in the chamber. They looked miserable. Their heads were down. Their wings drooped. Are you ready? Commander Thalrix asked. Jiwoo took a deep breath. Yes. They opened the door. The moment Jiwoo stepped into the chamber, the cubs' heads shot up. Their eyes went wide. They made joyful chirping sounds and rushed toward her. Jiwoo forced herself to stand still. She trusted that the cubs would not hurt her. She did not know why she trusted that, but she did. The cubs reached her and immediately pressed close. Sojin, the smallest, squeezed right up against Jiwoo's side. Velis rubbed his head against her shoulder. Minna curled her tail around all of them in a protective circle. The cubs were making a sound. A deep rumbling purr. Jiwoo could feel it vibrating through the ground, through the air, through her own body. It was soothing somehow. Peaceful. Without thinking, Jiwoo reached up and touched Minna's snout. The dragon's scales were warm, smooth. Minna's eyes closed and she leaned into the touch. She looked content. Happy Jiwoo found herself smiling. There was something right about this. She could not explain it. But standing here with these 3 dragons felt natural, like this was exactly where she was supposed to be. Outside the chamber, the scientists were looking at their instruments with shock. Impossible, Dr. Kareth breathed. What is it? Captain Rintok demanded. He was watching his daughter through the monitor. The cubs' stress hormone levels, Kareth said. They have dropped to almost zero. Their heart rates are slow and steady. Their brain patterns show complete calm. What does that mean? Rintok asked. Kareth looked at the captain. It means that being near this human makes them feel safe. More than safe. It makes them feel complete. In the chamber, Sojin had placed her massive head in Jiwoo's lap. The human stroked the dragon's scales gently. Velis had curled up on her other side. Minna had spread her wing over all of them like a blanket. Look at my daughter, Rintok whispered. I have not seen her so peaceful in years. Commander Thalrix watched the scene with growing concern. This is not normal, he said. This should not be possible. But it is happening, Hyunwoo said. The question is why. Elder physician Kareth stared at the monitors. An idea was forming in his mind. An impossible idea, but he had seen something like this before, long ago, in old texts that most dragons no longer read. I need to check the archives, Kareth said suddenly. The old archives. The forbidden ones, why? Thalrix asked. Because I think, Kareth said slowly, that this has happened before. A very long time ago. Everyone turned to look at him. Explain, Thalrix commanded, but Kareth was already moving toward the door. I need to be certain first. Give me one day. Then I will tell you everything. He left quickly, his mind racing. If he was right, if his suspicion was correct, then everything they knew about dragon history was about to change. In the chamber, Jiwoo sat with 3 dragon cubs curled around her. She did not understand what was happening, but somehow she knew it was important. Very important. Elder Kareth did not sleep that night. He stood in the deep archives beneath the academy, surrounded by ancient texts that had not been opened in centuries. Dust covered everything. The air smelled old and dry. These archives contained the histories that modern dragons preferred to forget. The dark times, the shameful times, the times before they became the proud warrior race they were today. Kareth searched through old data crystals and physical books. Most dragons would be shocked to learn that books even existed anymore. Everything was digital now. But these books were too old to transfer, too fragile. They stayed here, in the dark, mostly forgotten. He found what he was looking for just before dawn. A text written in ancient dragon script. The symbols were old-fashioned and hard to read. Kareth had to use a translation device to help him. The text was called The Age of Bonding. Kareth read it carefully, his eyes growing wider with each page. When the sun rose, he went directly to the council chamber. He requested an emergency meeting. Within an hour, all the important leaders had gathered. Commander Thalrix was there, Captain Rintok, the academy headmaster, several military generals, and Dr. Hyunwoo, representing the human delegation. I know what is happening, Kareth announced, but you will not want to hear it. Tell us anyway, the headmaster said. Her name was Yujin, and she was ancient even by dragon standards. Her scales were pure white with age. Kareth activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above the conference table. The images showed creatures that looked almost like humans. They had 2 arms, 2 legs, forward-facing eyes. But they were not quite human. Their proportions were slightly different. Their skin had a strange texture. 10,000 years ago, Kareth began. During the Sundering War, dragons almost went extinct. We were fighting ourselves, clan against clan, family against family. We were destroying our own race. Everyone in the room knew this history. It was taught to every dragon cub. The Sundering War was their greatest shame. What the history books do not tell you, Kareth continued, is how we survived, or rather, who helped us survive. He gestured to the holographic images. These were the Vrune. They lived on a planet near our homeworld. They were not warriors. They were not advanced technologically. But they had one special trait. Kareth paused. Everyone waited. They could bond with us, he said quietly. Not through technology or genetic engineering, just naturally. When a dragon was near a Vrune, they felt calm, peaceful, complete. The Vrune bonded with our ancestors and helped them control their violent instincts. They saved us from destroying ourselves. Silence filled the room. That is a myth, General Korvath said finally. He was a large military dragon with dark green scales. A story for hatchlings. The Vrunai never existed. I thought so too, Karath said, until yesterday. Look at the images again. Look carefully. The holograms rotated slowly. Hyunwoo leaned forward, studying them closely. His eyes widened. They look like us, he whispered. Like humans. Not exactly like humans, Karath agreed. But close, very close, the same general body structure, the same basic form. You are saying humans are related to these Vrunai? Thalorix asked. I am saying, Karath replied, that humans might be similar enough to trigger the same response. The dragon cubs are responding to Lieutenant Jiwoo the way our ancestors responded to the Vrunai. They recognize her body type, her presence, and their instincts take over. Instincts? Captain Rintok said. What instincts? We bred those out of our species thousands of years ago, did we? Karath challenged. Or did we just suppress them? Adult dragons go through genetic conditioning and mental training from a young age. We learn to control ourselves, to ignore the bonding instinct. But cubs have not been fully conditioned yet. They still have the ancient drives. They still remember in their DNA what it was like to have bonded companions. Headmaster Yujin had been quiet during this exchange. Now she spoke. I remember the old stories, she said softly. My grandmother told them to me when I was young. She said dragons used to be different, happier, more connected to the world and to each other. Then the Vrunai vanished, and we had to become hard to survive. What happened to the Vrunai? Hyunwoo asked. No one knows, Karath said. The records say their planet was destroyed in the war. The location was lost. Most dragons believed they were just a legend, a fairy tale invented to explain our violent history. But if they were real, Thalrix said slowly, and if humans are similar to them, then we need to study this carefully, Karath finished, because this could be very important for both our species. General Korvath stood up abruptly. This is foolishness, he declared. Even if this bonding existed once, we do not need it now. We are strong. We are disciplined. We do not need aliens to keep us calm like pets. Tell that to the 30 cubs outside who refuse to eat, Captain Rintok said quietly. Tell that to my daughter who cries every night. Korvath glared at him but said nothing. I want to speak with the human, Headmaster Yujin said. Bring Lieutenant Jiwoo here. They sent for Jiwoo. She arrived 15 minutes later, still wearing the same uniform from yesterday. She looked tired. She probably had not slept much either. Lieutenant, Yujin said gently. Please sit. Jiwoo sat down. She looked nervous, surrounded by so many important dragons. Yujin explained everything that Karath had discovered. Jiwoo listened carefully, her expression changing from confusion to wonder to concern. So you think humans and these Vrunai are related? Jiwoo asked. We do not know, Karath admitted. You might be descended from them, or you might be a parallel evolution. The galaxy is large. Similar body types can develop independently. But either way, Yujin said, your presence affects our young, and we need to understand why and how. What do you want me to do? Jiwoo asked. Yujin looked at her for a long moment. I want to tell you the truth, she said finally. The truth that most dragons do not know about themselves. She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was climbing higher in the sky. Dragon society is dying, Yujin said. Slowly, but dying nonetheless. Our reproduction rates drop every generation. More and more of our people suffer from depression and anger disorders. We medicate ourselves. We condition our minds. We do everything we can to control the darkness inside us. She turned back to face Jiwoo. We thought we were strong because we conquered our need for bonding. We thought we were better off alone, but maybe we were wrong. Maybe we have been slowly killing ourselves for 10,000 years. The cubs, Captain Rintok said. His voice was rough with emotion, They are happier now than they have been in their entire lives. My Min-ah, she was always so angry, so restless. Nothing satisfied her. But yesterday when she was with you, she was at peace. We do not know if this bonding is the answer to our problems, Karath said. But we know it is real. The cubs prove that. Jiwoo sat very still, processing everything. Finally, she spoke. What happens now? We need to do more tests, Karath said. Carefully. We need to understand the bonding process. What triggers it? What maintains it? Whether it is permanent or temporary. And we need to decide, Yujin added, if we want to pursue this path at all. Bringing bonding back would change everything about dragon society. There are dragons who will oppose this, General Korvath warned. Many will see it as weakness, as surrendering our independence. Let them oppose it, Captain Rintok said firmly. I will not watch my daughter suffer when there is a solution. I do not care if others call it weakness. The decision is not yours alone to make, Korvath said coldly. No, Yujin agreed. It is not. This decision will require the Dragon Council and the Empire's High Command, and the human government as well, since their people are involved. She looked at Jiwoo. I am sorry to put this burden on you, Lieutenant. You came here to observe training. Instead, you have become the center of a crisis that could change both our civilizations. Jiwoo thought about the cubs outside. She remembered how they felt pressed against her, how right it had seemed, how peaceful. If I can help, Jiwoo said slowly, then I will. Those cubs should not have to suffer because of politics or pride. Spoken wisely, Yujin said with approval. But understand this will not be easy. There are forces that will try to stop this. Not everyone wants change, even if change might save us. I understand, Jiwoo said, but she did not really understand. Not yet. She did not know about the groups already forming, the extremists on both sides who would rather see their species die than accept bonding. She did not know about the plots being made, the violence being planned. She did not know that within a week, someone would try to kill her. But she would find out soon enough. Change was coming whether anyone wanted it or not. The cubs outside were proof of that. Their ancient instincts had awakened something that had been sleeping for 10,000 years, and now nothing would ever be the same again. Headmaster Yujin looked out the window at the cubs waiting below. At Min-ah and Sojin and Velis and all the others. She thought about her grandmother's stories of the old times, when dragons were not alone. Perhaps, she said softly, we were never meant to be solitary creatures. Perhaps we were always meant to find others to walk beside us. Then maybe, Hyunwoo added, looking at Jiwoo, humans and dragons were always meant to find each other. It was a nice thought, a hopeful thought. They would need that hope in the days to come. News of the bonding discovery spread across both human and dragon space like wildfire. Within 3 days, every news outlet in the galaxy was reporting the story. Some called it a miracle. Others called it a disaster. On Earth, the Terran Assembly called an emergency session. The massive government chamber was filled with representatives from every human colony and station. Ambassador Jae-sung stood at the central podium trying to maintain calm. The evidence is clear, Jae-sung said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. Lieutenant Jiwoo triggered an instinctual response in dragon cubs that appears similar to ancient bonding behavior described in their historical texts. This could be the foundation for a stronger alliance between our species. Representative Daehyun jumped to his feet. He was a large man with a red face and he looked angry. Alliance? You mean making humans into emotional support animals for aliens? You want us to become living therapy for dragons? The chamber erupted in shouting. Some representatives agreed with Daehyun. Others supported Jae-sung. The Speaker of the Assembly had to bang her gavel repeatedly to restore order. Representative Daehyun has the floor, the Speaker announced. Daehyun walked to the podium. We all saw the videos, he said. Dragon cubs mobbing our officer like she was their favorite toy. Is that what we want? To be needed not as equals but as comfort objects? That is a gross mischaracterization, Jae-sung argued. The historical text described true partnership, not ownership. Partnership? Daehyun laughed bitterly. Dragons have been the dominant military power in the galaxy for 10,000 years. They do not want partners, they want servants, and now they have found a way to make us dependent on them emotionally. That makes no sense, another representative called out. The dragons need us more than we need them. Their cubs are the ones suffering without bonding. For now, Daehyun said darkly. But what happens when adult dragons learn to trigger the bonding too? What happens when they can make any human feel compelled to stay with them? We would lose our free will. The debate raged for hours. Meanwhile, in dragon space, similar arguments were taking place. The Dragon Empire's high command met in their war chamber on the homeworld. The room was enormous, built to accommodate dozens of full-grown dragons. Holographic displays showed military readiness reports and star charts. General Korvath stood before the assembled officers. This bonding is a weakness, he declared. For 10,000 years, we have been strong because we need no one. We stand alone. We fight alone. And we win alone. We also die alone, a younger general named Sujin countered. Our birth rates drop every year. Our people grow more violent, more depressed. How is that strength? It is the price of independence, Korvath said firmly. Better to stand free and suffer than to kneel comfortable and enslaved. No one is talking about enslavement, Sujin argued. The historical texts describe mutual bonding, choice, partnership. The humans will use this against us, Korvath warned. They will make us dependent, then demand concessions. Political control. Resource access. They will own us through our own biology. Prince Dallas had been listening to the debate in silence. He was the heir to the dragon throne, son of the current emperor. His scales were royal gold, marked with patterns that showed his bloodline. Now he stood and everyone fell quiet. My daughter is one of the affected cubs, Dallas said quietly. Her name is Hana. She is 7 cycles old. He activated a holographic display. It showed a small golden dragon cub sitting alone in a room. She looked miserable. Her wings drooped. Her head was down. This is Hana yesterday, Dallas said. Watch, the hologram changed. Now it showed Hana with Lieutenant Jiwoo. The cub was alert, active, playing. Her eyes were bright. She was making happy sounds. This is Hana today, Dallas continued. The same cub, just hours apart. You tell me which version shows strength, General. The one suffering alone or the one thriving with companionship? Korvath said nothing. I have watched my daughter grow more withdrawn every year, Dallas said. Nothing we did helped. Not therapy, not medication, not all our advanced technology. She was fading away before my eyes. Then a human showed up and suddenly my daughter is alive again. Exactly my point, Korvath said. You are willing to give up our independence because of personal feelings. I am willing to give up nothing, Dallas said sharply. But I am willing to try something new, something that might save not just my daughter but our entire species. The Emperor will decide, an older general said. This is beyond military authority. The debate continued throughout the dragon government. But while politicians argued, something else was happening in the shadows. Small groups on both sides were forming. Extremists who would not accept bonding under any circumstances. They met in secret, planning their response. On a human colony station, a group of 50 humans gathered in a hidden room. Their leader was a woman named Bora. She stood at the front of the room, her face hard. They want to chain us to aliens, Bora said. They call it bonding, but we know the truth. It is slavery, mind control, and we will not allow it. What can we do? Someone asked from the crowd. The government is already planning a pilot program. Then we stop the pilot program, Bora said simply. If the first humans who try bonding are killed, others will be too afraid to follow. The program will die before it starts. In Dragon Space, a similar meeting was taking place. A group of military officers who followed General Korvath gathered in a secure location. They were planning their own response. The pilot program will take place at the academy, one officer said. 50 humans will arrive next week to bond with cubs. Then we strike during the program, another officer replied. Make it look like the bonding caused the cubs to go violent. Blame the humans. End the experiment before it spreads. Back at the academy, preparations were underway for the pilot program. Commander Thalrix was in charge of security. He knew there would be resistance. He just did not know how serious it would be. Jiwoo had been at the academy for a week now. She spent several hours each day with Minna, Sojin, and Velis. The bond between them grew stronger. She could almost sense their emotions now. When they were happy, she felt lighter. When they were worried, she felt uneasy. Dr. Hyunwoo monitored everything carefully. The bond appears to develop over time, he explained to Jiwoo. It is not instant. But each day you spend with them, the connection deepens. Can it be broken? Jiwoo asked. We do not know, Hyunwoo admitted. The ancient texts are not clear about that. But I do not think you would want to break it now, would you? Jiwoo thought about Minna's happy chirps when she arrived each morning. About So-jin curling up next to her while she worked. About Vela's teaching her dragon flight maneuvers using models and pictures. No, Jiwoo said softly. I would not want that. The first group of volunteer humans arrived 5 days later. 50 people from Earth and its colonies. They had all volunteered knowing the risks. Knowing that some of their own people opposed what they were doing. Jae-sung came with them. He wanted to oversee the program personally. This is the most important moment in human-dragon relations since first contact, he told Jiwoo. We have to make this work. The bonding ceremony was planned for the next day. It would be a formal event where each human would be introduced to their assigned cubs. Media from both species would be present. It was meant to show that bonding was safe, natural, and beneficial. That night, Jiwoo could not sleep. She felt uneasy, restless. In the next room, she could hear Min-ah, So-jin, and Veliz moving around. They were restless too. Something was wrong. She could feel it. In her quarters, Bora and her team were making final preparations. They had weapons. They had explosives. They had a plan to attack during the bonding ceremony and make it look like the dragons had gone wild. In their hidden base, Korvath's officers were doing the same. Their plan was similar but opposite. They would attack and blame the humans for triggering violence in the cubs. Both groups thought they were saving their species. Both groups believed they were doing the right thing. And both groups were willing to kill to stop the bonding program. Tomorrow would be the ceremony. Tomorrow, humans and dragons would formally bond for the first time in 10,000 years. Tomorrow, everything would change. Jiwoo stood at her window, looking out at the 3 cubs sleeping in the courtyard below. She felt protective of them. They trusted her. They needed her, and she realized something important. She needed them too. Whatever happened tomorrow, she would not let anyone hurt them. These strange, wonderful creatures had become precious to her in just a week. She could not imagine her life without them now. She did not know that outside the academy walls, people were preparing to take that life away. She did not know about the weapons being loaded, the explosives being armed, the assault teams getting into position. But she would find out soon. The sun would rise in a few hours. And when it did, the academy would turn into a battlefield. Ambassador Jae-sung stood in his own quarters looking at reports. He saw the security concerns. He saw the threats. But he also saw the potential, the hope. Tomorrow, he said to himself, we either make history or we destroy it. He did not sleep that night either. None of them did. The galaxy held its breath. The morning of the bonding ceremony started peaceful. The sky was clear and red, with 2 of Ramath's moons still visible near the horizon. Jiwoo dressed in her formal uniform and went outside to check on Minna, So-jin, and Veliz. The 3 cubs were excited. They could sense that today was special. They chirped and bounced around Jiwoo, their wings fluttering. She smiled and touched each of their heads. Big day today, she told them. Lots of new humans coming. You need to be on your best behavior. Minna chirped in response. So-jin rubbed against Jiwoo's leg. Veliz spread his wings wide, showing off. The ceremony was scheduled for mid-morning in the main training field. Workers had set up a raised platform where the formal bonding would take place. Cameras were positioned all around. Security was everywhere. Commander Thalrix had tripled the guard presence. He knew there were threats. His people had intercepted suspicious communications. But they did not know exactly when or where an attack might come. The 50 human volunteers gathered in a preparation area. They looked nervous but excited. Most of them were young, in their 20s or early 30s. They wore simple uniforms marked with Earth symbol. 2 of the volunteers were named Tae-yang and Yoon-ji. Tae-yang was a pilot from Earth's Space Force. Yoon-ji was a xenobiologist who had studied dragons for years. They stood together, talking quietly. Nervous? Tae-yang asked. Terrified, Yoon-ji admitted, but also excited. This is what I have dreamed about my whole life. Actually bonding with dragons. I just hope they like me, Tae Yang said with a nervous laugh. Their assigned cubs were waiting in another area. The academy had selected cubs carefully, matching personalities and interests. Tae Yang would bond with a blue cub named Silva who loved flying fast. Yoonji would bond with a gentle green cub named Kethron who enjoyed learning. The ceremony began at exactly 10 o'clock. Ambassador Jae Sung stood on the platform with Headmaster Yu Jin. They gave speeches about cooperation and hope and new beginnings. The cameras recorded everything. Billions of people across both civilizations watched. Then the actual bonding started. One by one, humans were called to the platform. Their assigned cubs came forward. The pairs met, touched, and the bond began to form. It was beautiful. The cubs' joy was obvious. The humans' wonder was clear on their faces. Even the dragons watching seemed moved by what they were seeing. Jiwoo stood off to the side with Minna, Sojin, and Velas. She was not part of the formal ceremony since she had already bonded. But she wanted to watch and support the new bonds forming. That is when everything went wrong. The explosion came first. A massive blast on the far side of the training field. Fire and smoke erupted into the air. The platform shook. People screamed. Security forces rushed toward the explosion. Then more blasts went off. Smaller ones scattered around the field. They were not meant to kill. They were meant to create chaos. And it worked. In the confusion, armed attackers rushed onto the field from multiple directions. Some were human. Some were dragon. They all wore masks or face coverings. They carried weapons. Bora's team came from the north firing at dragons. Korvath's team came from the south firing at humans. In the middle were the cubs and their newly bonded humans caught in the crossfire. Commander Thalrix roared orders. His security forces tried to respond, but they were overwhelmed by the sudden assault. The attackers had planned this perfectly. Jiwoo's instincts took over. "Everyone down," she shouted at the human volunteers. They dropped to the ground. The cubs surrounded them protectively, using their bodies as shields. A masked human attacker ran toward Jiwoo, weapon raised. Minna saw him. The young dragon moved faster than Jiwoo had ever seen her move. Minna placed herself between the attacker and Jiwoo. The attacker fired. The energy blast hit Minna's scales and bounced off. Dragon scales were tough, but the blast still hurt. Minna roared in pain. Something changed in that moment. Minna's eyes blazed with fury. Her mouth opened and flame poured out. Real fire, hot and bright. It was the first time Minna had ever breathed fire. The attacker stumbled backward, his weapon melting in the heat. Other cubs were responding the same way. When they saw their bonded humans threatened, their combat instincts awakened. But they did not lose control. They fought with precision, protecting their humans while avoiding lethal force when possible. Tae Yang and Silva were pinned down by dragon attackers. The masked dragons were trying to separate them, to prove that bonding made cubs weak. But Silva had other ideas. Tae Yang, the cub called. Dragons could not speak human languages perfectly, but Silva had been practicing. On my back. Without thinking, Tae Yang jumped onto Silva's back. The cub launched into the air. They flew up and away from the attackers, then circled back. Tae Yang pointed out enemy positions. Silva responded instantly, using his flame breath to disable weapons and scatter the attackers. They moved together like they had been partners for years, not minutes. Tae Yang's tactical thinking combined with Silva's speed and power created something neither species could achieve alone. Yoonji and Kethron were trying to help wounded people. A human attacker ran at them. Kethron stepped forward, but Yoonji held up her hand. Wait, she said to her dragon. We can stop this without violence. She stood and faced the attacker. Please stop, Yoonji said calmly. Look around. We are not hurting the cubs. They are happy, healthy, strong. The attacker hesitated. His weapon wavered. This is not slavery, Yoonji continued. This is not mind control. This is partnership, friendship. Look at us and tell me you see anything wrong. Kethron stood beside Yoonji, calm and gentle. The dragon was not threatening. He was just there, supporting his human. The attacker lowered his weapon. He pulled off his mask. He was crying. I thought we were saving people, he said. But all I see is happiness. All I see is... Right. He dropped his weapon and walked away from the fight. Not all confrontations ended peacefully. The extremists on both sides were determined. They had come to stop the bonding program and they would not quit easily. Jiwoo found herself facing Bora directly. The extremist leader had broken through the security lines. She pointed her weapon at Jiwoo. "You are a traitor to humanity," Bora said. "You have sold our freedom for alien approval." "I have made friends," Jiwoo replied. "That is not the same thing." "Friends? They are animals. Dangerous animals that you are teaching to control us," Mina growled. Sojin and Velas moved closer to Jiwoo protectively, but Jiwoo held up her hand telling them to stay back. "Look at them," Jiwoo said to Bora. "Really look at them. They are not trying to control me. They are trying to protect me because they care about me, just like I care about them." "Lies," Bora said, but her voice was uncertain now. "I could walk away right now," Jiwoo continued. "They would not stop me. They would be sad, but they would let me go. This is not control. This is choice." Behind Bora, security forces were moving into position, but Jiwoo kept talking, trying to resolve this peacefully. "You are afraid," Jiwoo said gently. "I understand. This is new and strange, and it changes everything. But fear is not a reason to hurt innocent people. Or innocent cubs." So Jin made a soft, sad sound. The little green dragon looked at Bora with huge eyes. Not with anger, with concern. Bora's weapon dropped slightly. She looked at Sojin, then at Min-Ah and Velis, then back at Jiwoo. "How do you know this is right?" Bora whispered. "I do not know for certain," Jiwoo admitted. "But I feel it here." She touched her chest. "They complete something in me I did not know was missing, and I think I do the same for them." Bora stood frozen for a long moment. Then she lowered her weapon completely. Security forces moved in and took her into custody. She did not resist. Across the field, similar scenes played out. Some attackers were captured by force. Others surrendered when they saw the bonds in action. The extremists had expected to find mind control and slavery. Instead, they found partnership and friendship. By noon, the attack was over. The security forces had captured most of the attackers from both groups. Some had escaped, but they were being hunted. The injured were being treated. Miraculously, no one had been killed. The newly bonded pairs had proven something important. When their humans were threatened, the cubs fought with incredible skill and power. But they never lost control. They never became the mindless beasts that some feared. Instead, they fought smart, using their humans' tactical thinking combined with their own physical abilities. Ambassador Jae-sung addressed the galaxy via hologram. His clothes were singed and dirty, but he stood tall. "Today, extremists tried to destroy the bonding program through violence," he said. "They failed. Not because we defeated them with superior force, but because the bonds themselves proved stronger than fear and hatred." He gestured to the field behind him, where humans and dragons were tending to each other's wounds, working together to clean up the damage. "You have seen today what humans and dragons can do together," Jae-sung continued. "We do not lose our identity through bonding. We do not become less. We become more. Two species, different but complementary, achieving things neither could do alone." On the dragon homeworld, Prince Dallas gave his own address. His daughter Hana stood beside him, her golden scales gleaming. "For 10,000 years we told ourselves we were strong because we stood alone," Dallas said. "But true strength is not refusing help.